Why chosen ones are born into toxic families. Carl Jung explains the sacred wound. If you've ever wondered why some of the most spiritually gifted, empathetic, and wise people seem to come from the most broken families, you're about to discover a truth that will change everything you thought you knew about your own story. Carl Jung, one of history's greatest minds, believed that what we call toxic families aren't accidents. They're not random misfortunes. They're carefully orchestrated soul contracts designed to forge something extraordinary, the chosen ones. Today, we're diving deep into Jung's most profound teaching about the sacred wound, why your painful childhood wasn't a mistake, but a divine assignment. And by the end of this video, you'll understand not just why you suffered, but why that suffering was necessary to unlock your true purpose. But first, if this resonates with you already, hit that like button. It tells me you're ready for this level of truth, and it helps other souls who need this message find it too. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like an alien in your own family? Like you were speaking a different language? Operating on a different frequency? While everyone around you was focused on survival, drama, or keeping up appearances, you were the one asking the deeper questions. Why are we here? What's the point of all this suffering? How can we break these patterns? Maybe you were the child who tried to mediate your parents' fights, the teenager who became the family therapist, the adult who's still trying to heal everyone around you, even though they never asked for healing. If this sounds familiar, you might be what spiritual traditions call a chosen one. Though I know that term can sound dramatic, Jung had a different name for it, the wounded healer. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But here's what most people don't understand. Sometimes, becoming who you truly are requires being born into exactly the wrong family. Today we're going to explore why advanced souls deliberately choose difficult families, Jung's concept of the sacred wound and how it creates healers, the 3 stages every chosen one goes through, how to transform your family trauma into your greatest gift, and finally, practical steps to break the cycle while honoring your journey. This isn't just theory, this is a roadmap for understanding your life's deepest purpose. Part 1, the soul contract theory. Before we dive into Jung's psychology, we need to understand something that Western science is just beginning to catch up with. The idea that souls choose their circumstances before birth. Now, I know this might sound far-fetched to some of you, but bear with me. Even if you don't believe in reincarnation or soul contracts, the psychological principles we're about to explore will still transform how you see your story. I used to believe my childhood was just bad luck. Narcissistic parents, emotional neglect, parentification. I thought I'd drawn the short straw. But when I discovered Jung's work on the wounded healer archetype, everything clicked. Jung wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But he went deeper. He believed that our greatest wounds become our greatest gifts, but only if we're brave enough to dive into the darkness. According to this theory, advanced souls, what we might call chosen ones, deliberately select challenging family environments for 3 specific reasons. First, accelerated growth. Imagine 2 hikers. One takes the gentle, winding path up the mountain. The other takes the steep, rocky cliff face. Who reaches the summit with more strength, wisdom, and appreciation for the view? Easy families create comfortable souls. Difficult families create powerful souls. When you're forced to develop emotional intelligence, empathy, and resilience from a young age, you're essentially being trained for a bigger mission. Think about it. Weren't you the kid who could read the room instantly? Who knew when dad was about to explode or when mom was spiraling? You developed psychic-level intuition because you had to. That wasn't trauma, that was training. Second, breaking generational patterns. Jung was obsessed with what he called the sins of the fathers. He believed that unhealed trauma gets passed down through generations, like a family curse. But here's the twist. Someone has to be strong enough to break the chain. You weren't born into dysfunction to become dysfunctional. You were born into dysfunction to end dysfunction. Your family needed someone with the spiritual strength to say, "This stops with me." This is why so many chosen ones become therapists, healers, teachers, artists, or activists. They've been forged in the fire of family, trauma specifically to transform that energy into healing for others. Third, developing unconditional compassion. Here's the hardest truth. You chose parents who couldn't love you properly because you needed to learn how to love unconditionally. Not just others, yourself. Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." When you grow up with conditional love or no love at all, you're forced to find that love within yourself. You become your own parent, your own healer, your own source of validation. This creates a profound depth of compassion. You understand suffering in a way that privileged souls simply cannot. You can hold space for other people's pain because you've held space for your own. But understanding why this happened is only the first step. Jung identified specific stages that every chosen one goes through on their journey from wounded child to wounded healer. And recognizing which stage you're in right now can change everything about how you move forward. Part 2. The 3 stages of the chosen one. Carl Jung didn't just theorize about human psychology, he lived it. He experienced his own dark night of the soul, his own family dysfunction, his own journey from wounded child to healer of others. From this experience, he mapped out what I call the 3 stages of the chosen one. Understanding these stages is crucial, because most people get stuck in stage 1 or 2 and never realize their full potential. But once you recognize where you are, you can consciously move to the next level. Stage 1, the victim, the wounded child. Stage 1 is where we all begin. You're a child in a toxic family system, and you're doing whatever it takes to survive. Jung called this the participation mystique. You're so enmeshed in the family dysfunction that you can't see where you end and they begin. Maybe you were the golden child, desperately performing for approval that never came, or the scapegoat, absorbing all the family's anger and blame. Perhaps you were the lost child, disappearing into books or fantasy to escape the chaos, or the mascot using humor to deflect from the pain. Here's what's crucial to understand. This stage isn't your fault. You were a child. You did what you had to do to survive. The victim stage is necessary. It's where you learn to recognize dysfunction and develop your initial coping strategies. But some people get stuck here. Signs you might be trapped in stage 1. You still blame your parents for everything wrong in your life. You feel powerless to change your patterns. You attract the same types of relationships over and over. You use your trauma as an identity rather than a teacher. There's no judgment here. Some wounds are so deep that staying in stage 1 feels safer. But if you're watching this video, part of you is ready to move forward. Stage 2. The rebel, the awakening warrior. Stage 2 is where most spiritual awakening happens. You start to see the patterns. You read psychology books, maybe go to therapy, discover terms like narcissistic abuse and trauma bonding. Suddenly, everything makes sense. This stage can feel incredibly empowering. You go from feeling crazy to feeling validated. You realize it wasn't your fault. You start setting boundaries, maybe even going no contact with family members. You become a warrior for your own healing. Jung called this differentiation. The process of separating your true self from the false self you created to survive your family. It's beautiful and necessary work. In stage 2, you might cut off toxic family members completely. Become passionate about educating others on narcissistic abuse. Feel angry at your parents, society, or anyone who doesn't get it. Swing from people-pleasing to rigid boundaries. Experience intense emotions as old wounds surface. But here's where many chosen ones get trapped. Stage 2 can become addictive. The anger feels powerful after years of powerlessness. The victim identity, even the awakened victim identity, can become comfortable. You might be stuck in stage 2 if your healing has become your entire identity. You can't stop talking about your trauma. You see abusers and victims everywhere but miss the nuanced middle ground. You've swung from having no boundaries to having walls. You're more focused on being right than being free. Stage 2 is crucial. It's where you reclaim your power. But the ultimate goal isn't to stay a warrior forever. It's to become something even more powerful, a healer. Stage 3, the healer, the integrated sage. Stage 3 is what Jung called individuation, becoming who you truly are beyond the wound. This is where chosen ones step into their real purpose. In stage 3, you realize that your trauma was not just something that happened to you. It was something that happened for you, not because you deserved it, but because you were strong enough to transform it into wisdom. Jung wrote, "The wounded surgeon works with the knife, questioning the distempered part. You become someone who can heal others precisely because you've learned to heal yourself. In stage 3, you can hold compassion for your parents without excusing their behavior. Your trauma becomes a teacher, not a tyrant. You attract healthier relationships naturally. You can spot dysfunction quickly, but don't need to fix everyone. Your story becomes medicine for others. You understand that forgiveness is for your freedom, not theirs. Here's the beautiful paradox. In stage 3, you realize that your toxic family was perfect for your soul's evolution. Not because the abuse was okay, but because it created exactly the person the world needed you to become. But how do you actually move through these stages? How do you transform your sacred wound into your sacred gift? Jung had very specific guidance on this, and it's more practical than you might think. Part 3. The sacred wound becomes the sacred gift. Jung had a radical idea that changed psychology forever. What if our greatest wounds weren't obstacles to overcome, but portals to walk through? He said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But he also said something even more profound. Your vision becomes clear when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. Let me share something personal. My mother was emotionally unavailable. My father was rageful, and I spent my childhood trying to earn love that would never come. For years, I saw this as my greatest disadvantage. But Jung taught me to ask a different question. What gifts did this give me that a normal childhood couldn't? I developed hyper-empathy that lets me feel what others can't express, pattern recognition that helps me see dysfunction from miles away, emotional resilience that allows me to hold space for others' pain, a deep hunger for authentic connection that attracts genuine people, the ability to love unconditionally because I know what it feels like to be unloved. Your wounds gave you gifts too. Let's explore how to identify and claim them. The 4 steps of sacred wound transformation. Step 1. Acknowledge the wound without identifying with it. The first step is radical honesty about what happened to you. Not minimizing it, not excusing it, but seeing it clearly. Write down your story. All of it. The neglect, the abuse, the disappointments. But here's the key. Write it in third person. Instead of "I was abandoned," write "This child was abandoned." This creates what Jung called objective distance. You're acknowledging the wound without drowning in it. Step 2. Identify the adaptive gifts. Every survival strategy you developed has a light side and a shadow side. The hypervigilance that saved you as a child can become intuition as an adult. The people-pleasing that kept you safe can become genuine service to others. Think about your biggest family trauma. Now ask, what strength did I have to develop to survive this? What sensitivity did this awaken in me? How does this experience help me understand others? What would I want to tell a child going through the same thing? And if you were parentified, forced to take care of adults as a child, you developed premature wisdom and caretaking abilities. Your gift might be becoming a therapist, teacher, or healer. If you were scapegoated, blamed for everything wrong in the family, you developed resilience and the ability to stand alone. Your gift might be becoming a truth teller, activist, or pioneer. If you were neglected, emotionally abandoned, you developed self-sufficiency and deep inner resources. Your gift might be helping others find their own inner strength. Step 3. Reframe your story from victim to hero. Jung was obsessed with what he called the hero's journey. Every hero starts with a wound, faces challenges, descends into darkness, and emerges transformed with gifts for their community. Think about every hero story you know. Harry Potter, orphaned, abused by relatives, becomes the savior of the wizarding world. Buddha, sheltered prince who encounters suffering, becomes enlightened teacher. Jesus, Born in poverty, crucified, becomes symbol of unconditional love. Your story follows the same pattern. You were born into a challenging family, the call to adventure. You faced trauma and dysfunction, the trials. You descended into your own darkness, the dark night of the soul. You began to heal and understand, the transformation. Now you have gifts to offer others, the return with the elixir. Step 4. Integrate and serve. The final step is what Jung called active imagination, consciously choosing how to use your transformed wound in service to others. This doesn't mean you have to become a therapist or healer in the traditional sense. Your sacred gift might be creating art that helps others feel less alone, building businesses that operate on principles of authenticity and integrity, raising children with the love you never received, being the friend who really listens because you know what it's like to not be heard, speaking truth in environments where others stay silent. Jung believed that when one person heals, it ripples out to heal the collective. Your healing literally changes the world by changing the energy you bring to every interaction. But theory without practice is just philosophy. Let's get practical about how to actually live this transformation day by day. Part 4. Practical steps for chosen ones. Understanding your sacred wound is profound, but integration is where the real magic happens. Jung was a practical mystic. He believed in combining deep, psychological insight with daily practice. Here are the 7 practices that will help you embody your role as a chosen one, without burning out or falling back into old patterns. Practice 1. The daily wound check. Every morning, ask yourself, is my wounded child driving today, or is my healed adult? Your wounded child will react from fear and old patterns, seek validation from others, feel responsible for everyone's emotions, make decisions to avoid conflict. Your healed adult will respond from wisdom and choice, validate themselves internally, set boundaries with compassion, make decisions aligned with your values, take 3 deep breaths and consciously choose who's going to lead today. This simple practice can change everything. Practice 2. The parent compassion meditation. This one's hard, but it's essential. Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Once a week, spend 10 minutes visualizing your parents as wounded children themselves. See their pain, their limitations, their own sacred wounds. This isn't about excusing their behavior or reconciling with them. It's about freeing yourself from the energetic charge of resentment. Forgiveness is something you do for you, not for them. Practice 3. The boundary blessing ritual. Chosen ones often struggle with boundaries because their family trained them to have none. Create a ritual around boundary setting that makes it sacred instead of selfish. Before setting a difficult boundary, place your hand on your heart. Say, I honor my sacred wound by protecting my sacred energy. Visualize golden light around your aura. Set the boundary from love, not anger. Practice 4. The gift inventory. Monthly, write down all the gifts your difficult childhood gave you. This reprograms your unconscious mind to see your story as empowering rather than victimizing. My hypervigilance became intuition. My parentification became natural leadership. My emotional neglect became self-reliance. My family chaos became my ability to stay calm in crisis. Practice 5. The energy audit. Chosen ones are natural givers, but you can't pour from an empty cup. Weekly audit where your energy is going. Ask yourself, who in my life energizes me versus drains me? What activities fill me up versus deplete me? Where am I giving from abundance versus obligation? How can I protect my energy without building walls? Practice 6. The story. Medicine practice. Your story is medicine, but only when you tell it from your healed adult, not your wounded child. Share your story too. Help others feel less alone. Illustrate that healing is possible. Connect with other chosen ones. Transform pain into purpose. Don't share your story to get sympathy or validation. Prove how bad your childhood was. Justify current dysfunction. Stay stuck in victim identity. Practice 7. The legacy visualization. End each week by visualizing the legacy you're creating. See the ripple effects of your healing work extending to future generations. Imagine your great-great-grandchildren living in a world where Emotional intelligence is valued over achievement. Children are seen and heard. Families operate from love rather than fear. Mental health is prioritized. Your sacred wound helped create this world. These practices aren't just self-help techniques. They're spiritual technologies for fulfilling your soul's contract. And that brings us to the most important part of this entire message. If you've made it this far, you're ready to hear the ultimate truth about being a chosen one. Your toxic family didn't break you, it forged you. Your sacred wound isn't your weakness, it's your superpower. Your painful past isn't a liability, it's your greatest asset. Carl Jung spent his life proving that our wounds become our wisdom, our trauma becomes our teaching, and our pain becomes our purpose, but only if we're brave enough to do the work. You were chosen for this path because you were strong enough to walk it, not because you deserved the pain, but because you could transform it into something beautiful. If this message resonated with your soul, I need you to do 3 things. First, hit that like button and let me know in the comments which stage you recognize yourself in. Your sharing helps other chosen ones find their tribe. Second, subscribe and ring that notification bell, because we're building a community of wounded healers who are changing the world through their transformed pain. Third, share this video with someone who needs to hear that their difficult childhood was actually their soul's training ground. Remember, every chosen one feels alone until they realize they're part of an invisible army of light workers, all forged in the fires of difficult families, all here to heal what was broken and create what's possible. Your wound is sacred. Your healing is holy. Your purpose is powerful. Thank you for being brave enough to transform your pain into purpose. The world needs exactly who you became because of what you survived. Until next time, keep choosing healing. Keep choosing growth. Keep choosing love. You've got this.